Thune and their lawyer today.
I know.
He's going to talk.
That was a new one. Yeah. Not that serious.
He's
Might disagree with you about a bunch of things.
Recording in progress.
Love that.
All right.
I'm all the way.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the West County Wastewater District General Meeting. It is March 5th, 6:30. Before we get started, I'd like to say Happy Ash Wednesday, Happy Women's History Month, and thank you for all the ladies in the building and all of those behind the scenes. Thank you, Mom. Also, I'd like to say Friday is Employee Appreciation Day. So just so you know, with that being said, I'd like to ask Madam Clerk, if you could please take roll call.
Director King Meredith.
Present.
Otto.
Yes, here.
Director Winger.
Here.
Vice President Suddeth.
President, happy Ramadan.
And President Rentila.
Here.
We have a quorum with 5 of 5 members present.
Thank you. So if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, or you may observe a moment of silence, seated or standing. Director Alvarado, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As soon as possible.
All right, thank you. General Counsel Nicole Witt will serve as parliamentarian for tonight's meeting.
As a reminder to members of the public in attendance, the board has adopted rules governing the conduct of its public meetings. Public participation is welcome and encouraged. All public comments should be addressed to the board as a body, and the board asks that you please respect the 3-minute time limit per speaker. All persons attending board meetings shall observe the rules, any additional rules the board may establish, and the orders of the president with respect to the conduct of the meeting. No person may disrupt or disturb the board meeting. Disturbing, impeding, or otherwise preventing the orderly conduct of the board meeting could result in an individual's removal from the meeting.
Thank you. Directors, before we begin with tonight's agenda, I ask that you be mindful of the board's rules of decorum, in particular to practice civility and decorum in discussions and debate. In order to preserve the order of this and every board meeting, directors will wait to speak until they are recognized and will restrict their comments to the motion or the agenda item under consideration. Thank you. For public comment, that's for items not on the agenda. Members of the public may comment during this time, up to 3 minutes per speaker. Directors may briefly respond to ask clarifying questions, but not engage in discussion regarding public comment made during this time. Now is the time for public comment on items not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on tonight's meeting?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on non-agenda items, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Thank you. General Manager Andrew Clow, please lead us through the remainder of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. The consent calendar consists of items 1 through 4 on the agenda. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on the consent calendar items?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on consent calendar items, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
We recommend the board approve consent calendar items 1 through 4.
Are there any questions or comments?
I move the item.
Second.
Okay. I see we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please take roll.
Sure. On the motion to approve consent calendar items 1 through 4, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 5, to receive the fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report for the year ending June 30th, 2024. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on item 5?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on regular calendar item 5, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comment.
Thank you.
Board of Directors. I'm Maria Bagley, the Finance Manager. Today, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our independent auditor. He is with Mays & Associates. His name is David Alvey, and he performs the district's independent audit.
Good evening, board members. Again, my name is David Alvey. I'm a CPA and audit partner at Mays & Associates, and we are the district's independent external auditor. And my role every year is to come in and audit the financial statements and to render an opinion. So we have for you today the annual comprehensive financial report, and I'd like to point out that this used to be called the comprehensive annual financial report, but that language just changed into 2021. So it's a slightly different, but it's the same financial report. Oh, there it goes. There it is. Okay, so technically of this report in front of you, the only piece that my firm owns is technically the audit opinion, and that is on pages 1 through 3. And before we get into the audit opinion, well, I'll just talk about it a little bit. The audit opinion requires us to be independent of the district, so have no business dealings other than that we're a vendor, but we don't have any relatives working for the districts or family members working for districts. And we actually have to ask all of our staff that every year with our list of clients to make sure that everyone's still independent. We have to conduct the audit according to generally accepted accounting or auditing standards in the United States of America. And before I get into what the audit opinion really means, our audit has 2 phases. We have an interim phase and a final phase. During the interim phase, we're looking at the checks and balances. We're looking at the internal control environment. We're making sure that a single person cannot initiate, approve, and book a transaction without a second set of eyes on that, because that could be ripe for error, but it could also be ripe for fraud. So during that phase, we're looking at journal entries, making sure that there's proper review of journal entries, disbursements, that they're following the board-approved purchasing policy, and the limits that are set in that. We're looking at payroll, make sure that the pay rates follow what is approved in the Memorandum of Understanding and the pay schedules. And then we're looking at other more cyclical items within the district. And once we get an idea of the internal control environment, good or bad, here it was good, that determines how much work we have to do at final phase after the books are closed when we look at the balances. So then we start looking at the balances, and now we're sending confirmations to your bank. We're looking at your bank recs, we're looking at your debt transactions, capital asset additions, pension, and other post-employment benefits. And at the very end of our audit, right before we issue our audit opinion, we get what's called the legal counsel audit, or legal confirmation. And that's signed by your legal counsel saying that they've given us everything, that we're not any liabilities that are on the books that we don't know of. And then at the very last part, we get the manager representation letter signed by management, giving us everything in full faith, and then that becomes our audit opinion date. So it seems like a lot of work, but the results of it is an unmodified or clean audit opinion. And an unmodified opinion is the highest level of assurance that a CPA firm can give an entity. So congratulations, you passed your audit. Going over to some quick financial highlights, starting on page 14, statement of net position. You ended the year with a net position of $110 million, and that was a $120,000 decrease from last year. Your pension and your other post-employment related items, your pension liability increased $1.4 million to $19.5 million for the year ended. That has to do with just the market conditions. And then your other post-employment asset decreased by $16,000 to $1.6 million. So turning over to page 15, statement of revenues and expenditures. You'll see that for the year ended June 30, 2024, you had $39.2 million in revenue. And that was a little bit less than your expenses of $39.3, and that caused that $120,000 decrease in your net position. Your operating revenue increased by $1.5 million or 5%, and that has to do with approved rate increase of 5%. I believe the rate increase was approved in 2021. Your operating expenses increased $5.8 million or 23.5%. That has to do with just the increased cost of treating water, utility costs were up, and then that swing in the pension liability. And then your non-operating income increased 1 million or 26.6%. And that really has to do with pure just investment income, getting a little bit more interest rate, higher interest rates and return on your investments. So the second document that we have is the Memorandum on Internal Controls and Required Communication. Now, this is my firm's communication to this governing board of things that we found during the audit, and they've been categorized into 3 ways. Material weakness means something material can flow through the internal controls and not get caught. We have nothing to report there. The second is significant deficiency, that something significant can flow through and not get caught, nothing to report there. And then the third is just a catch-all, other matters. And the only thing we have in there is just upcoming pronouncements that are coming down the pipeline for the next 5-6 years that will affect the financial statements. The second half of this is the required communication. So statement of auditing standards requires that I tell you that we had no disagreements with management. We don't think there was any issues with management's accounting assumptions. You know, management has to have certain accounting assumptions, useful life of capital assets, fair market value of investments, technically even the pension and other post-employment benefits, those rated returns, those long-term expected rates have to be signed off by management. So we had no issues with that. We don't think that management was limiting our scope or being, holding back information from us, and we don't think management had a second CPA firm waiting in the wings just in case we didn't issue an unmodified audit opinion like we did. And so with that, I just want to thank Justin and Maria and Yukiko for all their help. They're a great team, and an honor to work with them, and open up to any questions you might have about the audit process.
Director Weiner?
I don't think I have any questions with your report. I have some questions regarding the information that I didn't understand in the management report. Is this the appropriate time to?
Yeah, I can address those at a time. That's good. Good evening, Director Weiner.
I think other people might have.
If you can hold on for just a second, I may have jumped the gun. I wanted to ask Vice President Sudduth, since she is the chair of the Finance and Administration Committee, do you have any questions or comments from?
Thanks. Thank you for I want to say cleaning up, but addressing our questions that we had or our concerns that we had in the FAN committee meeting. And before I go on, Director King Meredith, I know you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Only that, thank you for the Zoom when you presented at our financial and administrative meeting. And again, to be on record, thank you for the unmodified report that we received from the audit. Again, thank you.
No thanks to me, that's thanks to your
Our
finance staff.
Right, to our
They're the ones that
agency,
did
but
it.
to note it, that,
Right.
of our expertise, yes, thank you.
Yeah, and so I know that you guys weren't privy to some. We just asked for a few tweaks to some of the language and make sure that we weren't using acronyms that you guys didn't know. Of course, that the report used to be called a CAFR, and now it's not called a CAFR. It's called the I can't even pronounce it. ACFR now. ACFR. Is that right? ACFR, the annual report. And I did want to make sure that you explained, I know you explained why it went down, but if you could also just, and I don't know if this is you or Jocelyn, we say we were going to explain that decrease a little better. So I know your only part, if you wanted to tell them how long you because we have to change auditors, right? Can you explain that legal requirement, either you or General Counsel, that legal requirement of how you are, what the legal requirement is for your firm, why there's a hence, the arm's length, and why we have to change that auditor ever so often, and how long we have retained you so far.
So,
You understand my question?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely, yeah. Independence is key for us in terms of being able to render a non-biased opinion about the financial stability of the district. So there are certain rules as a CPA, I have to follow to keep that independence and to make sure that my staff are independent at all times. And then in terms of the rotation, government code, I don't remember the section offhand, requires that you have to swap out the lead partner or the partner in charge of the audit every 6 years, after 6 years. So I can't be your lead partner for 7 consecutive years. After 6, I have to rotate off. You still stay with the firm, but that's built into the government code, and we track that internally. And I believe I've been out here since 2022. This is second year, I'm sorry. Yes, second year as the auditor, or as the audit partner. And regarding the change, 120,000, I mean, Justin can probably speak more than that, but it's very minor. And again, there's a lot of things outside of your control that you can do with that, especially with the pension and the other post-employment benefits. We're kind of at the mercy of, not at the mercy, but how those numbers come in through in your pension and your other post-employment. We get that from the actuaries, and if if they miss on their rate of return, or you hire a lot of people, or it's just a lot of pieces in there. But we just want to see huge swings, big increases, big decreases in that position. That's where I start to get concerned. That's why, so I said at the meeting last week that 120,000 out of 110 million is not really anything that kind of concerns me.
I wanted to hear that, and I also wanted to have the group here. Am I on? Yes. I wanted to have the group here, well, not just the group, but also anybody who listens to this in the public. The definition, can you let them know what GASB is?
Yeah, GASB is Government Accounting Standards Board.
Okay.
So those dictate the rules that we have to follow. So GASB 96 was the one that changed from the CAFR to the ACFR. GASB 68 put the pension on the books, the pension liability on the books. GASB 75 put you guys have an asset, which is actually very rare with districts, other post-employment asset on the books.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have, and Director Kim Meredith, before I pass it back to the chair, was that we mentioned that there were a few risks that you wanted to point out, the inflationary. Did you want to say that, or I know it's in here, but just so we wanted to point it out, right?
I mean, from an audit standpoint, I can speak on risks.
Yes.
We do, as part of our audit process, we do what's called a risk assessment matrix. It's by section. So it's a living document in our audit work papers, and it's by section. So cash has one, revenue has one, capital assets has one, and it's broken out into 2 sections. One is inherent risk. So cash, for example, is inherently risky because it can go missing. The pipes under the ground, probably not as inherently risky to go about going missing. So we have an inherent risk, and then we have a control risk. So if it's a high inherent risk, we have to do a lot of controls to get comfort over that. So we're constantly looking at that. And so like if we come in at interim and there's really good internal controls, so inherently cash maybe is lower risk or medium or high, it's low, medium, high. But then if we come back at final and maybe your finance staff all quit, and now there's no controls, now that risk goes high, and we have to do more testing, substantive testing of the balance to get comfort of that number to be able to issue an opinion. So from an audit standpoint, that's how we see risk, the risk of issuing a wrong opinion.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much for that. So I just wanted everybody to understand how you go about your work.
Yeah.
And Director King Meredith, did you want to add anything from the Finance Committee?
No, you had all.
Okay.
Those acronyms and stuff you covered.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, back to you.
Thank you. And my apologies, Director Weiner. You're on deck.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, I wanted to thank, this is about the management report that you signed off on. Thank you to the staff for the effort to put this report together. The document represents the most transparency the public and the board gets into the amount of work and money that goes into making West County wastewater an industry leader.
I'm sorry, is your mic on?
It is on, but the volume is maybe low. I can and will speak up. Because I can. So to repeat, thank you, staff, for the effort to put this report together. The document represents the most transparency the public and the board gets into the amount of work and money that goes into making the West County wastewater an industry leader. Most of my questions are, I didn't understand the number that I was looking at. And there's a whole lot of tables that I went through. It's a daunting process. So there's a page titled West County Wastewater District Statements of Cash Flows for the Year Ended June 30, 2024 and 2023. Cash flows from operating activities. And the line that confused me or I didn't understand was cash paid to employees for salary and wages. And between, I think in the 23, it was a negative amount or a very small amount as compared to the 2024. And I didn't understand how that could be or what that even meant.
Yeah, I can just speak to that one. Director, we know wants to get Justin Lovell, Deputy General Manager. It's not that we didn't pay our employees. It's related to the accounting transactions related to the pension cost. So there was a loss.
So that would be we got an unfunded liability
We increased
increase.
unfunded liability in that year.
So that's what that represented?
That's representing that.
Oh, I wish you would have said that. Okay.
It's a lot of numbers go into that one number. A lot of different rows that make that calculation.
Okay. And then it looks like our cash and investments have resulted in significant earnings compared to previous years. It also looks like the distribution of the investments were moved primarily from the least amount of return to slightly higher returns. And since past success is no indication of future profits, what monitoring are we doing to move our investments around to prevent potential loss?
Sure, I can speak to that. So yeah, if you noticed, in the last year, we've been, the last 2 years, we've opened up 2 different pooled investment accounts. One was camp, and then was class. And both of those are tracking pretty well on how much interest earnings they have. And so at the time, those within the last fiscal year 24, we were getting around 5% interest earnings on our investments. And so what we did, our other investment option that we typically had for many years was LAIF, which is managed by the State Controller's Office. Their rate of return is significantly lower than camp and class, and so we've essentially moved most of our money into the camp and class accounts in fiscal year 24. And so that's contributed to increased interest earnings, and it was just a favorable environment because class and camp compared to LAIF, they have a much shorter term in investments. They're typically every 30 days they're kind of reinvesting, and so they're able to take advantage of really the Treasury rates. The U.S. Treasury is that setting the different interest rates, as that rate was being fairly consistent. Class and camp were able to more quickly take advantage of better interest earnings because they have a shorter turnover time versus LAIF, which has a longer duration, usually about 300 days, about a 9-month duration. So it takes LAIF a lot longer to catch up on the higher interest earnings. So that's the long answer of kind of how we got part of the reason why we had a better interest earnings in fiscal year 24 compared to 23. And then just looking at it, what we're observing is, we're just monitoring the camp and class rates. They, every week we get another email saying, hey, this is a 7-day rate. And then if we wanted to invest in slightly longer term, we could invest it in longer term rates. But right now, the interest rate environment, it is more advantageous to keep it in a shorter 7-day duration rate versus investing it in a 6-month term, because that's lower interest earnings. And so we're just continuing to monitor that. We don't have additional, say, more proactive investing, because all of our cash that we need is between the bank account, or Mechanics Bank, and then between the 3 investment accounts, which those are actively managed through different investors. So I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah. Also, are we taking any steps to defend against a resurgence of inflation, which is predictable from the outrageous tax reduction actions of Congress and the totally stupid, economically damaging behavior of the executive branch, like tariffs and making government financial guarantees on blockchain technology, AKA Bitcoin?
I feel like that's more of a budget question, because we're looking at what has happened in the past. And those are things that we're aware of that could increase our cost, as inflation happens. And that's what we experienced during COVID, supply chain issues, different cost increases. And depending on what happens in the state with tariffs and with other, if there's other supply chain issues or where do we need to get our products, yeah, there's a real risk. So that's just something we have to monitor right now. Too much unknown. We kind of have to follow the market and kind of what happens on the economy.
So we basically pay attention.
We're paying attention to it.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Also, the economic area that we are in, or the area we are in, it's economics. You printed a major employer list, which was very interesting. And it looks like the Social Security Administration is the 3rd largest employer. And then government in general is the largest source of employment. Pretty much a lot of levels of employment. There were very few private companies that were up there in that. So I think that's something that will be something we need to follow. I think our ratepayers may suffer from some financial issues coming up. Okay, here's a technical question. What are deferred outflows of resources and deferred inflows of resources?
This actually may be better for our auditor to explain kind of what that means on the accounting side of how we account for future resources.
So to make it simple, think of it as something that's a liability or an asset, but not quite. So I know that's hard to say, but
Say that again.
so something that's like a liability or an asset, but not quite. So for like your deferred outflow is an asset like item, deferred inflow is a liability like item, but it doesn't really represent any kind of tangible thing. So they came around with the pension and the other post-employment benefits where they said they don't want these spikes and valleys. If interest rates drop and inflation goes up and something happens and all of a sudden your pension liability just skyrockets, right? Because it's year to year. So what they do is they amortize those out over time and they flow it through those inflows and outflows to kind of try to smooth it out. Didn't quite work in 2022 because it was a little crazy, but that's really what's in there. So like, for example, if you had a,
So these are by law or regulation defined.
yeah,
see.
Government Accounting Standard Board requires that we have those in there for the pension, the post-employment benefits, and then also even like a loss or gain on refunding of debt, because that's not a real asset or liability. It's not like a capital asset that you can point at or cash that you can point at.
So it potentially affects the bottom line, but it's not counted in the bottom line.
It's not counted in the bottom line, but we have to record it, yeah.
Okay, and then if the pension plan, this was, there was a whole lot of interesting description of the pension plan. If the pension plan outperforms its predicted annual growth, does actual money flow back to the district?
No, it'll just be, it'll adjust your fiduciary net position and your pension, total pension liability and then the net of those is your net pension liability. So it could lower your net pension liability. But again, those gains and losses are amortized out through that deferred inflow and outflow, so, yeah.
And how does it affect at all the employee contribution to their retirement?
That would probably be from Cal.
Yeah, it's a very CalPERS-specific question. Those who are on what's called the classic CalPERS plan, there is just a fixed amount that they contribute. What fluctuates is the amount the employer, so West County Wastewater, contributes. And as part of every year, CalPERS release their actuarial study. They're always a year behind of when they do the updated calculations, and then they'll tell us how much has to be contributed towards the pension. So there's two different pension types. So there's the PEPRA employees, which those are who started employment with CalPERS after 2012, and then the classic employees who started employment with CalPERS prior to 2012. And so there's two different rates, but what fluctuates the most is the employer contribution. And so that's known. We know about kind of 2 years out in advance, and CalPERS will project what the estimated contributions are. They go 3 to 4, 5 years occasionally on the actuarial studies. So that does fluctuate.
I think this is my, no, I have two more. In the table titled demographic data, I found figures on the website, censusreporter.org, that said our median per capita income was $46,890, and it looked like you guys had a number 84 or something, 84K as a, and I was just wondering, do you know if that number that you reported for the district-wide per capita income was average or was a median?
I believe that was that the median? But we do look at, since we're not one city, sometimes we are looking at countywide. That shows in there. We try to make the best estimate based on our area.
Okay, so that could explain why I found 46 and you had 84.
Right, you're looking at different sources.
Yeah,
of data,
and
yeah.
also different statistic. All right, and last but not least, not true, in the table titled Collection System Activity, every activity has declined from 2023 to 2024. What explains that?
That one I'd have to get back to you on and talk specifically with our collection system. I know we've had a lot of extra assistance from collection system with maintenance this year related to clean and green or to other activities down at the plant that sometimes takes away from the days of just cleaning pipe or videoing. But I would have to get back to you on specifically what happened. Yeah.
When you do, that would be great. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and that report is something, and really is so chock-a-block full of important information, so I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you. Director King Meredith?
No.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Oh, you're welcome. Director Alvarado?
No questions, just want to thank you for your efforts, and it was a very concise report, so thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Sudeth?
Nada mucho to add.
Nada
Thank
mucho.
you.
And then I want to thank you for the report. A lot of work. I can imagine how much work went into this, and I applaud you for that. Thank you, Mays and Associates. And I was having a conversation with our general manager here about will this be posted for public consumption?
It's on the website. We have got it on the website now. It should be there. So it's available.
Oh, 24, yeah.
All right, so it's on our public, it's on our website, general
Website.
public.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And I guess, thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mace. Thank you.
If there are no further comments or questions, we'll move to the next item. which is regular calendar item 6, to receive the fiscal year 2025 mid-year budget report and approve budget amendments totaling a net increase of $2.5 million over the fiscal year 2025 adopted budget. Madam Clerk, have we received written comments or requests to speak on item 6?
We have not. If anyone wishes to comment on item 6, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing, oh, let me get back in here. Hold on a second. I just want to make sure. I can't. We have no public comments. We're having some technical difficulties, so I need to try to see if I can bring this up on my end.
Could you introduce the staff?
I'm trying to think what would be the easiest. This is
Introduce
not
herself
faster.
again.
Hey, it's Women's History Month. Shape up.
I'm just trying to hang in. If it goes any longer, I'll start yakking about something.
I'm trying to. No, that's not gonna work. And actually, I need to share this out. Okay. All right. Let's see, hide. See what?
It's cold in here.
No, it's not.
You can just leave it right there. Can I just tell you next? No. I'll just tell you next. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Do you want me to raise it?
You can have Angela give us an update that she was going to give on a recent spill, and just never do it while we're working on
I'm
it.
telling you, I'm cold.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, would you like to give us an update on what you're working on? While we're in limbo?
Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So go ahead and introduce yourself again.
Good
then we'll-
afternoon, or good evening, Board of Directors. I'm Maria Bagley. I'm the Finance Manager, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about our budget, mid-year budget review. All right, so on the very first slide that we have is just an overall summary of our actual revenues and our adopted revenues. Please note this is year-to-date as of December 31st. So this is representing the first half of our fiscal year, going from July 1 to December 31st. So you can see that we've taken in 22.7 million out of an adopted 72.8, and we have had expenditures totaling for the first half of 20.2 million out of 75.4. I do want to kind of caveat that we do receive the sewer service use charges in a segmented way, so that is the bulk, 90% of our revenue. So don't get scared, even though we haven't taken in a lot of them. They're still coming. Next. So this kind of just goes, so I'll just talk, I'll just kind of talk through this with you guys, so while we're having technical difficulties with the slide. As I noted before, the bulk of our revenues is about 92% with the sewer use service charges, which is what the auditor mentioned, the 5.5% that was board approved back in 2021. That's that blue slice on that chart right there. Then we have contracted and other operating revenue sources of about 5.4%. So that's when we go out to other districts, kind of help them out. This is any sort of lease revenue that we get for the sludge beds. And then we have capacity charges. So this represents about 1.2 of our overall revenue. And this is when developers and folks want to essentially buy into our system and connect to our wastewater system. So that's representing that small. And then slightly under 1%, we have the permit fees. Next. No, it's fine, it's fine. Okay, so the next slide actually talks, just shows you where we are in terms of capturing that data, or where we are as a percentage of what we were expecting to receive for the total year. And I'm just gonna look at it myself so that I have it as a reference point. Sorry, guys. So we have essentially earned 19.1 million out of our 34.6 million. So that's on that sewer service charges. Once again, it's based on the county giving us those payments, and those payments come 4 times a year, which is our biggest slice of our revenue. We've earned about 3% so far of what we thought we were going to earn on contracted revenue services, and permit fees were about 4.4. Okay, next slide. Sorry. All right, so the status of our operating expenses. So we have the light blue, which is the year-to-date expenses as through December 2024. The materials and services we've essentially done about 5.8 million, and the salary and benefits are 7.5. We have a remaining for materials and supplies and services of 6.6, and for salary and benefits about 9.5. Non-operating expenses, this is really where the CIP and the capital expenses has come out. The capital expense represents about 33.7 million, which is the green slice of that pie, and that's driven by the CIP plan, the clean and green, and all the other projects. We have 7.4 million, which is the next largest item, and that is your debt service. So that is for going out and issuing the wastewater bonds to do the clean and green, along with 4 SRF loans to do other capital projects. And then we have other non-operating of about 1.8. So this is your larger capital equipment purchases, the spot repairs, and whatnot. And then the next one is the status of the non-operating expenses. Like I said, this year to date, we've out of the $33 million on the capital, the CIP side, we've spent about 5.3. We've put in only slightly under $1,700,000 of the debt service, and other non-operating, we've actually done about 50% of that. Services, a lot of those debt service payments are all actually in the later half of the year. They come through during the months of April, May, and June. So that's where we have all the debt service payments coming from. All right, so for the FY25 proposed amended operating budget, we're actually asking for an additional or net $3.1 million. So we would bring up the operating revenues from 72 million to 73, or 72.8 to 73.4. The main drivers behind that is the interest earnings, as kind of mentioned during the audit. We've had good interest earnings. There we go. Okay, sorry guys, technical difficulties. The interest earnings was about $375,000. That was brought up, and then we have lowered a couple of other categories in there, and then we've also increased the property tax, which was really driven by the sales of the redevelopment agencies. As you guys know, the development agencies are essentially being disposed of and assets are being sold, and so that money comes through to us. So we budget 0 for redevelopment, and whatever money we get is obviously an increase. So that's where the drivers on the income side are. So for the expenditures on the operating versus the non-operating, we're requesting $32.3 million in the operating. versus the 29.5 that we had in the budget. And the non-operating, we're increasing that slightly to 46.2, and the budget was 45, and this is just essentially buying larger equipment, and the staff report talks about like the pumps and all the items that we have requested and back trucks and whatnot, which have been board approved. And that is it, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Vice President Sedith, as Chair of the Finance, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you. Dr. King Meredith, did you want to say anything before I
No, I'm sorry.
It's
Thank
okay.
you, Ms. Bagley. I think during our financial administrative meeting, we kind of hashed out quite a bit of questions that we had, and she just asked them, ran through them. At this point, you answered what we had asked you to do. So so far, I'm satisfied.
Okay.
So, okay.
Thank you. And again, thank you for addressing what we talked about in the meeting. There was a question on, hold on just a second. I did have a question on, I wanted you to, you said that, I think you said the 19.1 million of the 34 million that we were expecting, right?
You're right.
And the payments come in 4 times a year from county. Can you just tell the audience what that means? Because I think it was the overview of the revenues and expenditures slide, but I think it disappeared too fast. I'm looking at it on my screen, but can you just tell the audience what you meant by that? Because I think we talked about it in our committee, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands what you meant by that.
So we are on the teetered plan, am I saying that right? Teetered plan?
And what does the teetered plan mean?
Which is with the sewer use service charges, the board essentially votes and does the increases for that, and this is where we put all the property tax on the property tax rolls, and the county goes ahead and collects that for us. So they will pass through the teetered plan, they take a small administration fee, and they guarantee us a specific amount of property taxes, so if people are delinquent and whatnot, we will actually still get that money. However, the county actually dispersed the money in October, November, April, and June. So we have received 2 payments, which is what you kind of saw there on that amount that was already received, and we're still expecting the other 2 payments. That is a category that we know that we will 100% receive, because what is put on the rolls is automatically given to us despite, residents or any defaults.
That's what I wanted to make sure that the public understands, that when the county gets the money on the property tax rolls, we will get the money rather than direct billing the ratepayers, correct?
Right, and they do take a small administration fee, but.
Yeah, small administration fee, which is better than us chasing the money directly to the ratepayer, correct?
Right,
Okay,
a lot easier.
yes. So I wanted to make sure we got that on the record. So with that, and we aren't using any more acronyms that people won't know. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Es todo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Director Weiner?
I have no comment or question.
Thank you. Director King Meredith? Director Alvarado?
No questions, just thank you for the report. Very concise as well.
Vice President Sedith?
Appreciate it. Good report. Thank you.
Well, I will thank you as well, but I did have one question, and I'm not sure if you can answer it. I'm just curious, how many homes do we service in total, and how many homes do we service in the city of Richmond?
I cannot give you an exact number. It's about 34,000, and I don't know the split in Richmond. I apologize. I can come back
It's okay.
to you on that. Unless.
I see Justin moving.
Good evening again. It's about 40% of the 34,000. I don't have to do the math right now, but if you
40% enrichment?
40% about 30 of the 34,000 is enrichment.
So that's 40 divided by 110.
So we're about 15,000, a bit less than that.
About
Yeah, but about
15,600.
about 12,000 or so
15,600.
homes in city of Richmond.
So 34,000.
I'll ask Google.
78, 15,600.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Well, in my math, in my head.
Just a quick.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Vote just real quick, just to make sure on this one, because there is a budget amendment.
Well, this one said that we're receiving it, right?
And approving the budget amendments.
I see, yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll need a,
Yeah.
that's right, she spoke about that earlier. Yeah, there you go.
So
Somebody
then I
was
will
paying
move the
attention.
item.
But is that it? I thought there was a second half to this report, no?
So I hear a motion to move the item. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry. Can you clarify? On the motion by Director Alvarado and seconded by Director Weiner to approve budget amendments totaling a net increase of $2.5 million over the fiscal year 2025 adopted budget, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, next on the agenda is item, regular calendar item 7, to approve a contract with Daniel Keene Consulting for a total amount of $12,000 for general manager performance evaluation services. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on item 7?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 7, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Good evening again, Justin Lovell, Deputy General Manager. So this item is, very briefly, it is to approve a contract with Daniel King Consulting to provide general manager evaluation services. Just a quick background, we, with the ad hoc committee of Director Alvarado and Director King Meredith, discussed, issued, received 2 proposals from firms, and the ad hoc committee has selected Daniel King Consulting to provide the GM consulting services for the GM evaluation services for this year. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, I'd like to defer to the ad hoc committee. Director Alvarado?
I'll be happy to. It's just as Justin explained. We met, we got 2 proposals, same 2 teams that did the services last year. And we ended up going with Daniel Keene this time around for the general manager, as he did the general counsel last year. So we wanted to switch it up a little bit. And his fee was what, $2,000 cheaper?
That is about $3,000 cheaper than the other firm. Yeah,
About
so it's a lower
$3,000
cost
cheaper.
option.
And he did a great job with the council, so just a different perspective. It's basically what it is. Director King Meredith, would you like to add anything?
Only that upon the selection, that one of the things that we found, well, that we discussed, that he would be doing the whole evaluation, as we're looking at instead of having several other entities as before that we had last year, and he would be doing the whole 360, is that correct, of the interviewing the executive branch and also looking at the board. So we felt that he would be able to perform these duties.
Yeah, if
at
I
this
can add
time.
on,
Yeah.
Director King Meredith is correct. That is one of the pieces that we asked for
Mm-hmm.
proposal, is to have a 360 evaluation component. So Daniel King will interview 5 direct reports of a general manager and consolidate those interviews in as part of the closed session information that will be provided as part of the report that he'll be providing to the entire
Right.
board.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
The ad hoc committee recommends that we approve this contract.
Thank you.
Daniel King, thank you.
Thank you. Director Weiner, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm going to follow the committee's recommendation.
Sounds good. Vice President Sudduth?
Ditto.
Ditto?
I trust the ad hoc committee did what they said they were going to do.
So I'd like to echo everyone's sentiments and ask for a vote or a motion. And a second?
Sure, I move the item.
And I'll second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk?
On the motion by Director Alvarado and seconded by Director King Meredith to approve regular calendar items, and those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is regular calendar item 8, to receive the mid-year capital improvement program update report for fiscal year 2025. Madam Clerk, have we received any written comments or requests to speak on item 8?
We have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 8, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Andrews. I am the Capital Portfolio Manager for the Infrastructure and Planning Department, and I run the Capital Projects Division. And we are presenting the Capital Mid-Year Update for you all tonight. And I think we have a PowerPoint or the exhibit up.
It'll be slightly delayed. I'll control it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So the agenda today is just a program overview as well as performance, and we'll go over an update as well as a strategic plan. The update was also presented at IOE committee earlier this year. So as a reminder, we do have 7 programs as part of the capital project delivery system. It's our Clean and Green project, facilities, force main, gravity sewer, lift stations, other, and plant process. In future slides, you will not see any projects in the other category because we have moved over the master plan update to planning and support services, who will be managing that, as well as other studies. But we will reserve that category for future projects that might fall within that program. So as a reminder, we have a 10-year capital project plan update, 5-year program, 7 programs, which I included earlier, and 42 projects within the total program. That's okay. All right. So we have a total plan budget of $36.67 million. As you can see, most of that is going to the Clean and Green project, which is fully funded. But we do have the second largest category, which is our gravity sewer, which is extremely important to reduce SSO, sanitary sewer overflows, and help keep our systems running. We also have the force main coming in second after our gravity sewers, so which will also reduce our emergencies that we see out in the field. For our actuals, I have 4.9 million. I know earlier we talked about 5.3, but these actuals are actually applied to specific projects. We do have some costs that have been shifted over to master plan update, which is more planning and support services, as well as some labor costs that will be covered, but it's a very slight difference. But we do have those costs tracked as well. But for the capital plan, our actuals are at 4.9, and you can see that 35% of that is towards the Clean and Green, which is our largest budget. So yeah, that is really exciting because we're showing a lot of headway with that particular project, which is our biggest project in the district's history. And then we are making headway in gravity sewer, that the sewer system has not been neglected, and it's definitely helping our CSO staff reduce those calls for service. And here is a breakdown of the actuals by program. Again, other is not mentioned in this program type, as well due to us moving the master plan project into planning and support services. But you can see the breakout of what we spent for fiscal year 25 versus our budget. Again, Clean and Green is our largest project. And after that is our gravity sewer. And here is a percentage of projects. We, again, do not have 42 projects on our plate right now, but we are working on projects in various stages. Gravity sewer, we have over 40,000 linear feet identified of projects that need to be addressed, whether it's repair and replacement or just us upgrading the system. And lift stations, we have about 12%, which is about 5 of our lift stations in our network. And including a SCADA project, we would need to do a lift station SCADA project for our systems to all communicate within the same system and to be able to be managed remotely. That would be another future project, as that is part of the lift station program. We also have our force main projects, and we can actually keep this slide. It's okay. It's the same thing. It's just by breakout of projects. So as you can see, all the gravity sewer projects here are listed. This was done in support with CSO and Planning and Support Services. They identified the highest priority sewer replacements, and that is informed by our I&I study, our inflow infiltration study, to tell us which are the projects of greatest need. And we also have a number of facilities projects identified. Many of them are on hold, but we are working on a temporary maintenance building for our staff at the plant. And we also have additional plant process projects that were identified in addition to Clean and Green for future projects. And we do have the Clean and Green project again as a separate program. And CIP by phase, these are the various stages that our projects are in. As you can see, a lot of them are in initiation. So as part of our initiation phase, it includes understanding what the scope of work is, who are our stakeholders, who is our project team, but also most importantly is our project charter. Our charter is a document that allows us to inform the project, but also allows us to understand how much money is going to be spent on this project, what are the high-level requirements, what are the risks, high-level risk, and other information to help us get started. And then in the next phase would be our planning phase, which is in the green. That is informed by our project management plan. And that is a document that's taken over by our project managers after it receives it from Planning and Support Services to give more details of how to manage the project. Then we'll go into design. Some of that design is informed by our in-house engineer. And then we hopefully go into construction. And after that, we'll be closing. So usually we'll come to the board when we are about to extend a contract for services, whether it's additional staffing needs or a general contractor to work on the project. And then we come back to you when we're ready to close out the project. And then there's some projects that are on hold for various reasons. These are the projects. They are distributed throughout the district. As you can see, they are pretty much even around the district, I would say. But Clean and Green, again, is our largest program. And then we'll go program by program. So Clean and Green is Clean and Green, as you are aware. We have completed 2 digesters installations. We also have installed an aeration blower. We have done improvements to our headworks with the grit removal system. We have extended our EQ basins. We have installed solar at multiple lift stations, as well as the district. And we are continuing to get our calculations for our energy savings. And so that's our next big project will be the BESS, as well as the microgrid. So those are some projects. It's like a sub-project that will come back and present to you all the progress of that. But Clean and Green is well on its way. Facilities, here is a graphic of what the maintenance facility will look like. This is a temporary building, modular building, and then we do have a separate maintenance building in the future that has been identified. That might change in the future, but there are multiple buildings identified as part of the capital plan, which includes environmental center, training center, a maintenance building. In the future, we will come back to the board to kind of understand what is the balance between doing facilities as well as sewers, lift stations, plant processing projects, and we'll have to make some decisions on how we manage the balance of those projects with our budget that's coming up in future years. And this is our force main program, and part of the force main program is our force main assessment. So this is the overall image of the total force main. We are still in the assessment phase. We are making some decisions to try to find some efficiencies in the project so we can be a smoother process where we can reduce some of the shutdowns that are needed to address the assessment and to allow a tool run to go through the force main so we can get good data and understand what are the needs throughout this run. Other force mains that are part of this program include La Honda, Tower Hills, and Tower Hills will be informed after the force main assessment. We've already completed the rest of our force mains. Tower Hills is the main one that we have to complete. We also have Carriage Hills force main, which is underway. We are already contracted out, but we're going to start that project in a few weeks. And we have Fitzgerald as well as Pinole Center. Gravity sewer. So this is a long list of sewer replacements that we have identified. Currently, we are in construction for Lower San Pablo. We've completed 546 linear feet for that project. We are adding an additional 400 linear feet, and we anticipate that being done by the end of the year. And we recently just completed El Sobrante. You did receive that closeout report, and we're in the final stages of closing out that project, and that was about a mile. So we're hoping to get about a mile and a half of pipe in the ground by the end of this year. Lift stations, right now there's only one project that is related to lift station, that is the catwalk. A couple of our board members attended the site visit where we showed the catwalk that was corroded. We have signed up a contractor to get started on that project. That should be done by the end of this fiscal year as well. And we just want to improve the safety of our lift stations for our maintenance crew that needs to manage those lift stations. So that catwalk will be starting in a few weeks as well. Plant process. We mainly talked about the Clean and Green project, but there is a very large project as a sea level rise project. We are entertaining viewing that project as its own program in the future, but right now it's still in conceptual design. We did receive a grant from San Francisco Bay Estuary to have 65% drawings and move that project along. So right now we have about $2.3 million allocated for the sea level rise project. There are ongoing discussions with other agencies of how they can partner with us to make sure we are addressing climate change as it relates to very critical infrastructure. So other plant processes are identified, but we are seeing what the impacts of Clean and Green will be, given that is our largest project. So we'll probably reprioritize this list once that project is done, and this list might change in the future. And this is our strategic plan. I won't bore you with going goal by goal. I think you all just had a retreat. You probably had a lot of strategic planning on your plates, so I'll spare you, but I just want to show how our work is tied to every goal in the strategic. This is our staff on the Capital Projects Division, and I just want to give a special thank you to our Senior Project Manager, Keith Reynolds, who is managing the Clean and Green project, as well as other projects. He's also managing Carriage Hills force main, and that is a very critical project as there was a failure there and that we are addressing. So he has taken that on. We have Will Silver, who is addressing the force main assessment project and doing other projects for us internally. And Mohammed Masood, he is working on that catwalk, and he is also doing a lot of engineering-related work, working with planning and support services, as well as getting more planning done for our sewer replacements. And I also want to extend a thank you to admin services, particularly Maria Bagley and Ebony Allen. This was the smoothest I've been able to reconcile invoices and expenses with our projects. I'm very proud of the collaboration we have between our two teams. And then also want to thank the admin services who pay the bills. It's very important to pay our contractors and making sure that our consultants are happy as well, because it keeps the project moving. And also wanted to thank CSL Ops Maintenance, particularly Ops Maintenance, just because Clean and Green is a very labor-intensive project, and it's a lot of activity happening at the plant. We have over 80 laborers on site, and that's in addition to all the staff that's working there day to day. So I know there might be some things that change, and they have been extremely patient with this project, but I'm hoping that it will be, worth it in the end for them as well. So that's all. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Director Alvarado, as Chair of the Infrastructure Operations and Environmental Committee, do you have any questions or comments?
No, just a great report. Very happy with the progress to date, and we're moving forward. So thank you, and thank you for your staff for all their hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Weiner?
Yeah, I have a question, and surprisingly, it has to do with numbers. You have the fiscal year budget, 2025, actuals for FY 2025 is the slide. And you have your budget totals, and then you have your spend. And I'm assuming that it's just for 1/2 of a fiscal year that you
Yes.
spend?
Yes.
It's still pretty low. It's not like half, it's less than half of what you budgeted for.
Yes, we anticipate larger invoices to come for our Clean and Green project. 29 million of that is particularly for Clean and Green, and we anticipate a lot of those bills to come through. But the rest of the spend is related to our sewer replacements, and a lot of that will happen at the tail end. We have some contracting that we need to have done, but we have gotten contractors on board, and you'll start seeing larger bills come at the end of that once they finish work. We do have one particular contractor that tends to bill at the end because it's a shorter project. So when that project comes, or when those invoices come, you're going to see $1 million possibly invoice that comes in. So you'll see that spend go up.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and nice report, good report.
Thank you.
Director King Meredith?
Yes, thank you. I do have just one question, just for clarification. The lift station, I know that the catwalk was like deteriorating, but the cost, I know it's at 5% of what we're looking at the pie. And could you
Yes.
probably say what the cost would be? It's estimated?
Yes, it's around 400,000, and that would be towards the catwalk. We are anticipating future years to address lift stations as well as the SCADA upgrade. Right now, those projects are on hold due to funding. So we are anticipating to move forward on those lift station projects, and a lot of that work was informed by a previous project that we called Various Lift Stations, and we did 5 lift stations at that time, about a couple years ago. And we do have some lessons learned from those projects, as well as we're at about 95% completion of drawings. There might be some changes, some tweaks as information comes from the plant staff, but right now we do have those drawings on the shelf, and they're almost ready to go once funding is available.
Okay, all right. And I think that was probably the only thing I need clarification on, was 5%. And thank you for explaining that. And the report was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your hard work and the team's hard work. And it's good to see the progress at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Sedith?
Thank you. Good report. 2 questions. Are we still on schedule, and budget-wise, what are we looking like on the clean and green?
For Clean and Green, we're still on budget. There will be a schedule impact with some, we do have some things that might come up to the board in terms of adding additional time to the project, and it could be related to the BESS addition. But right now, we are scheduled to complete by it's hard to say right now, but we are scheduled for most of our construction to be done by the end of this year, but there's also some commissioning and some other things that, not this calendar year, but we do have some things that are coming up with commissioning that will extend us probably into the winter of 2026. But majority of the work will be done by December 2025.
Are we impacted at all with supply chain issues?
I did actually talk internally regarding particularly the tariffs, but a lot of the products that would have been impacted, they were impacted earlier with other global events. So we did acquire a lot of the materials related to the Clean and Green project. I would say for future years, we might see some increased costs for our sewer replacements and any equipment related to our force main sewers in future years. But right now, our Clean and Green project, we pretty much were over that hurdle, most of it because of the Ukraine impacted the steel a little bit when we had the Ukraine conflict, because a lot of the steel came from that area. But we've already acquired majority of our equipment. There might be some impacts to BESS, but right now, the Clean and Green project at the standalone is pretty much accounted for. If there's anything else that comes up, we will definitely bring it to the board, but we haven't seen any concrete evidence of this impact yet.
So maybe not the Clean and Green, but on any of our CIP, are we seeing any?
I mean, a lot of our pipe is PVC, but there might be some equipment that involves steel that could be impacted.
Okay, and then the other one is, you said that the lift station project is on hold due to funding. What do we? Can you just?
Sure.
The
course.
public.
Of course.
Can you elaborate on that? Just not much, but just let us know what that means.
Sure. We had a very aggressive capital plan, and the Clean and Green project is addressing majority of what was on our plan, and that alone is again a $86 million project. So that's a portfolio in itself. So a lot of that focus went to plant projects. As we looked at the budget, some of the projects and programs were impacted by just sludge removal and the cost of doing sludge removal. So we had to kind of pivot a little bit to focus more on Clean and Green, and then put out other projects in future years. So our focus is continuing to replace pipe as well. It's just we won't replace as many right now, but lift stations will stay on our capital plan. It will not fall off, and we're very fortunate that we already addressed 5 lift stations. That's also very aggressive to have that as one project, but that was completed by our former project manager, now our district engineer, Armando Hodge. So I give him a lot of kudos for knocking those projects out. So it addressed a lot of issues that are related to communication with our lift stations. He was able to make sure that they communicate with the plant, as well as some improvements that were informed by operations and maintenance. They were able to do those upgrades a few years ago.
Okay, I just want to make sure we keep this in mind as we look at our budgets and any rate studies or anything, that we keep in mind the necessity for this funding.
Yep.
Okay, gracias. Es todo.
Thank you. I had a couple questions. So we said we approximately have 34,000 homes that we service, and I was just wondering, do we know how many miles of pipe we have to the plant? And how many miles of pipe do we need to replace? Because the city of Richmond's over 100 years old, and I know some of the pipes are 100 years old.
Right.
So,
Yes, so we have 250 miles of pipe that we do need to replace.
250?
I mean, 250 miles that we have in our system. As far as replacement, right now, we do have an I&I study, and a little bit over 40,000 has been identified right now as on our list to replace, but that's obviously, it's an ongoing study that needs to happen. Right now, we're prioritizing those projects. We do have a high I&I study that identifies the critical areas, but right now, we have prioritized at least 40,000 linear feet. But we've replaced about 5 miles so far, so it's pretty aggressive, I would say. We're a lot of agencies, they do more spot repair, and we're actually doing replacement. Replacement is more intensive just because of all the work that's involved in replacing a line. So 5 miles within the past couple of years is something not to sneeze at. So our goals, we would like, if we had the funding, our goal would be 2.5 miles, but it would be a funding challenge if we were to go more aggressive than that. But we're hoping that the funding will still be prioritized for sewer replacements, as that's where we see a lot of our emergencies.
And then I just wanted to bring that up so our ratepayers understand we've got a lot of infrastructure to replace, and it's a lot more complicated than just digging a hole and pulling a pipe up. It's very expensive.
Yes.
It's a real cost. And then as far as the sewer lateral rebates into sewer laterals, are we actually making money off of that, or? I know we had a rebate. I don't know if we
So
still
the
do.
rebate is actually for the residents. Our Planning and Support Services manages that program. And I don't know the exact number of residents that have taken advantage, but they get calls regularly to have that happen. But the PIPES program is, to me, sounds like it's very successful from the reports that I hear, and they are replacing laterals.
Justin, did you want to mention anything about how much we spent on the PIPES program? We don't make any money on the program. We actually spend money to help residents.
Sure. Yeah, we've, so the board has approved about $400,000 a year in budget. So we're working really hard to get up to spend that much amount. I think it's about a little under $200,000 a year is kind of where we're at. But with the campaign that we've talked about in the last couple weeks, that many of you have received the notice in the mail, we anticipate that as more people become aware, it'll eventually want more people to replace their sewer lateral so we can reduce inflow and infiltration into the system.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is other business, item 9, reports from staff, general manager, and general counsel. Madam Clerk, if we received any written comments or requests to speak on item 9.
Have not. If anyone wishes to speak on item 9, please approach the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing none, we have no public comments.
Thank you. We have a couple, we'll start first with Angela. She's coming back up, this time to talk to us about a spill.
Yes, thank you. I am here regarding a spill that happened on March 2nd at 7:51 p.m. And the initial response to that spill was within an hour, so at 8:51 p.m. This happened at 465 Linda Drive in San Pablo in the Maltalvin Manor neighborhood. And the initial estimate is around 2,800 gallons. Volumes recovered was 0, and the spill happened due to blockage from roots. and likely pushed by a plumber or a landscaper in the area. The resident did try to address the issue with plumbers. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so that probably contributed to the several hours response time. But we did go back out there and remove the solids in the backyard and did CCTV, and we'll go back out there again to CCTV to make sure it's clear if there's anything else we need to address.
Are there any questions?
It was in the ratepayers' backyard,
Yes.
so it was part of their system or ours?
It was our system, so we cleared it out. It was likely, at first they thought it was their lateral, but then it ended up being our system, so we went out and cleared it out.
And it turned out to be roots.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director King Meredith?
No, the question was just asked about the roots.
Okay. Director Alvarado?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Sutter?
What was the total number of gallons? Did you say 2,800?
2,800.
And none was recovered?
Zero was recovered, but they did do a clear out of the clean out and did offer to have restoration management, but there was no volumes recovered, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last week, Justin Lovell, Deputy General Manager, and myself, as well as 3 of our board members, and I'm sure they'll all talk about it a little bit themselves, attended the CASA DC Policy Forum. Let's see, what can we bring back from that, Justin?
And where was that at?
Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
The EPA was not allowed to talk to us, and we met with quite a number of our legislators, our local legislators, and one of the primary things that Justin and I were focused on, and Vice President Sudduth attended with us, was a meeting with the headquarters staff of the Army Corps of Engineers, the person who would review the request that will come from the district through the regional office to headquarters to place our project, our request for funding for final design and some construction initial design, but ultimately get an environmental, a new start on an environmental infrastructure project. We've done everything we could. We were received very well by the Army Corps. They said we've done everything we could. We have strong support from our local representatives. It's likely that Representative Garamendi will place it as an earmark. Whether we get in the work plan and see funding in fiscal year 26 or not is unknown. But we'll keep pushing and get closer hopefully each time. But it's hard to say whether any environmental infrastructure projects in the state of California will see federal funding. It's uncertain at this time. So that and learning about a lot of scary cybersecurity issues and AI on the horizon. But I'll stop there unless Justin wants to add anything, and I'm sure we'll hear from our board members as well. Okay, nothing further on that. We got our spill update. No further reports from staff, Mr. President.
Thank you. I guess we'll move on to director's reports. Am I right?
I can,
Director,
yes, go right in.
Director Wiener?
Item 10.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry.
No problem.
Since our last meeting, we had our strategic plan meeting. I went to Washington, D.C., along with Annie Sherrill, the GM, and our finance man, for the CASA lobbying event. I attended the El Sobrante Chamber of Commerce Board meeting and the Richmond City Council. My experience in D.C. was informative, but not definitive. The Congress was in disarray, and meeting staff and hearing from Congress people was very hit and miss. Regarding CASA issues, we heard from two, both incoming and former Trump officials, both of who also served in the first Trump administration. One seemed very knowledgeable regarding CASA issues, but left us with the impression she did not know what, if anything, would be done. The other man gave the impression that while Trump was sowing chaos, the natural state of DC was inertia, and that would finally win the day. Did not give me much solace in that regard. Many of the government speakers important to our industry, including congresspersons and senators, canceled their presentations. The most unsettling cancellation was the meeting between CASA and the EPA, as well as the scheduled EPA address to the gathering. I visited the office of Eric Swalwell, where we talked to an aide that took our material and heard our talking points. I also visited the office of Senator Schiff, where we spoke to an aide. Unfortunately, we were not expected, though we were told we had an appointment, so we waited quite a bit. We also made our presentation and left material. I left DC with the impression that Congress would be too busy being disrespected by the executive to get around to any of the issues we presented, and the executive would be too busy redirecting our taxes into his pockets to take them up.
Thank you. Director King Meredith?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also attended DC last week, and as Director Winter did mention, we did meet with Eric Swalwell, his advisory, his political advisory. And we had 10 minutes to actually make our case. What we there, we was there, and the need for our projects that we were having to present at that time. Also to emphasize that we were with CASA, at this point, to make sure that it wasn't a divide, but we were there for the benefit of our sanitation district here on the West Coast. We had about a minute or two to actually hit our key points. Fortunately, we had our flyer that we left with each and every visit that we had. We actually did our highlights of what we were there for. I mentioned the clean and green. At our last meeting with, I think, Eric Swift as
Adam Schiff.
Adam, I'm sorry, Adam, not Eric, Adam. That it really, he was young, but very attentive, but he had worked with him for several years, as he had stated. But one of the things we did mention in the few minutes that we had to speak on was our clean and green, and what it would do once it was completed, as far as to actually cut down on the carbon footprint, and that at the end, we're looking at 93% of success for actually saving the electricity that we're using, and also that it will save with the ratepayers, once we start this process and actually this project is up and going. So, as I said, it was quick, to the point. I had actually a well-presented flyer that we left with our advisors and our representatives so they could look further into the process and what we were doing at this time. So it was a misconversation with letting the CASA that we were talking on the same page, and we was there for representing. It was the representing not just us, but the West Coast itself, California. So we made that point very straight to the point, and was there and out, okay? The other?
strategic planning. You attended strategic planning.
Oh, that's right. And also, two other things, let me get it together. I've been very busy for the last 2 weeks, you wouldn't believe. But I also attended the strategic planning. I thought it was wonderful. It was 8 hours. We were from 9 to 3. Well, I probably counted wrong, about 7 hours. But anyway, it was well worth it. It was well, no, it was well worth it.
It
was
seemed that long.
Right, yeah. But it truly was well worth it to see where we're at and where we're going. It was excellent. I thought it was very good, very good. The other thing that just recently, we had a Black History program that was delayed from February, but we actually had it just this past weekend. And it was very informative. It was the Neighborhood Council, which was Shields Reed and Iron Triangle. And we had attendance of over 150 that attend. It was well attended. And then just last night with with Director Alvarado, was the MAC meeting that I chaired, and the key part that was presented was talking about the unhoused and how they were actually living doing the creeks, at the creeks, and polluting the creeks with tires and building structure with tires. And when code enforcement would come out, they would burn the tires, and that would pollute the ground. And therefore, the waterways that we're trying to clear up in order to bring back the trout and bring back the beauty of this area in the creek, it is just really, it's really a task at this point, a task. So they're working very hard in order to have a collaboration in order to monitor and to clean up and to have these individuals to go into other shelters and stop polluting the creek itself. So it went on and on and on, but I cut it from right there. I don't want to keep going. Director Alvarado might have something to say about it, but it was very lengthy meeting. So that's my report for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Staying on the topic of Washington, D.C., I'd like to go to Vice President Sadeth.
Thank you. So my experience might be a little bit different from those who attended because I was there the full week, actually just about 9 days, for CASA and Aqua. So I'm going to start with that, that visit. So for the Washington, D.C. Policy Forum with CASA, we had a jam-packed few days with a lot of visits packed into a couple of days, as the general manager just spoke about. And my colleagues to my left just spoke about, there was a general meetings, General Assembly meetings with everyone, and then there were the one-on-one in-person meetings with our representatives and with the committee meetings. Something that I'd like to bring our attention to is that, among the funding freezes and the talks of the court battles and Senate confirmations and all of the partisan conversations is something that we need to take into account in the district that's going to affect us, right, is the National Environmental Protection Act, permitting reforms. So NEPA is the National Environmental Protection Act, and how that's may or may not be implemented in this current administration, and that it will affect us. So the push to have individual agencies have control on how some of these permitting reforms that are being put up in this administration, is we talk about what happened with the Chevron decision or Chevron deference, and I will ask that we have the General Counsel remind us of that decision. It doesn't have to be tonight, but the fact that we are having these permitting reforms and that we are having that go down to these individual agencies will have a profound effect on not only the way we do business, but the way some of our partners do business. And that will affect us greatly. The environmental regulations from the Biden administration, the previous administrations, not only Biden, but Biden, President Biden, President Obama, and the Bush administration, as far back as the Bush administration, have been rolled back in this administration with a number of EOs, executive orders. And the Congressional Review Act is what they were talking about, which says that, bills in can come under review, which this president has taken swift action to roll those back in record time. And all of those, of course, are affecting us. So, such things is what we have been asking for with renewing of the Clean Water Act, state revolving loan fund authorization. Likely won't happen. And if it does happen, it won't happen anytime soon. We were asking for support of continued funding of the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act under Title 16 and related programs. Protecting the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA expanded clean energy tax credits that would help reduce wastewater agencies' operational costs and improve our facility efficiency. If you notice, I'm not making any kind of I'm not making any opinion. I'm just telling you what we're asking for and what. And that, in that's going to include for us, the IRA provided for tax credits for biogas projects and for solar projects. And it also gave us the ability to use cashback options that supported any type of public-private partnerships. And it also established these for a lot of, like East Bay Mud, one of our partners, the low-income household water assistance program. Without that, it does affect us. And while the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, one of the questions that was asked was, okay, we saw that this administration was clawing back a lot of programs and taking back a lot of investments. The IIJA is one of those programs where they cannot take that money, but they can take the money that was allocated but not funded, or no, that was allocated but not funded for the IRA, whereas the IIJA cannot be retroactively taken. So if it was already allocated under the IIJA, but we're asking Congress to ensure that the investments that they promise communities are protected and delivered to public agencies. That's what we were asking for. Whether that happens or not, we will see. But the appropriation funds that are going to support, and we did this with both CASA, I'm going to mix these up, CASA and ACWA. But I will tell you, it's a tough sell. I talked to both Democrat and Republican representatives, and I will tell you that a lot of those people who went were speaking basically to people who were safe. I tried not to do that. I tried to speak to whoever who would take my meeting, and
Smart.
yes, because it does no good to just speak to people who are going to agree with you. I want to speak to whoever is going to have the ability to make a change and make a difference. So with that, some people who are going to be chairs of some of the committees and subcommittees, including Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where some of our work in infrastructure falls on the subcommittee, especially in the Senate, the environmental, the Water and Natural Resources Committee and Subcommittee, the Water Infrastructure and Innovation. Let me see, what else was I going to tell you guys? We had meetings with we had a lot more meeting, the water, Bill Ball, who is the Senior Policy Advisor with the Office of the House Speaker, he spoke with CASA earlier in the week, and I was able to get a meeting with their office on Thursday afternoon, just to see, part of my strategy was to see what is it that we might be missing, so we can try and find out, what they're thinking, to find out what, one of the things that Representative Garamendi and several of the other speakers during the CASA conference said to us is that we need to be finding out what's the wording that we can use when we're asking for our requests. Because right now,
Say that again?
what is some of the wording that we should be using that will resonate with the representatives on some of these committees and some of these decision makers that will help with our requests, right? And so if we're only talking to people who like wording, like equity and, inclusiveness, it doesn't help if the people who don't like the wording are the ones making. Sort of the strategy was to go into these offices and just listen. And so, which is what I ended up doing later on in the week, speaking to, Kevin Kiley and some, especially our representatives in the North State, who tend to be a lot more conservative than those of us here, and in Orange County. So I was able to get a few meetings there on Thursday and Friday after our Aqua presentation. We had some really good meetings strictly on water infrastructure, water and wastewater infrastructure on Thursday and Friday. It was a very interesting kind of juxtaposition because on most of the day on Thursday, the Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Geological Survey, the U.S. Geological Society. Yeah, thank you. Yes, they came to speak to us about their budgets and about what's being cut, and did talk about the Reclamation's dam safety program and water storage, water recycling, desalination, the Colorado River update. We talked about circular liability, which is a big one for us when it comes to PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances, for the audience, so that you understand what we're talking about. And also for PFAS and PFOA, PFOS. And what was interesting about that is that we would have one member come in, and then a member would come in from an opposing side view and totally negate what the one who came in before them came in, and said, I know what they just said, but let me tell you what it really is. So someone came in and talked about the San Joaquin, the Sacramento Delta, the Bay Delta agreements, and then in the San Joaquin Delta Estuary Water Quality Control Plan, which is something that Aqua wanted us to talk about. And then directly afterwards, the member from North State came in saying that some of what we're asking for is too stringent and too focused on environment. We did talk about the U.S. Supreme Court decision in the Sackett versus EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, for the audience, and the WOTUS, which is the water of the United States under the Clean Water Act. They do, what part of the fear is if you open up the Clean Water Act, it may open up more than what we're asking for. And so I don't want to go into the weeds here, but I do want to make sure that you guys understand there's a lot going on that you may not be seeing on television. Some of our representatives from the Ferguson Group, our lobby agency, were also at Aqua presenting, which was nice to see. We had, oh my goodness, There's just a lot. There was so much. I took like 40 pages of notes. Just, I know, and you know how small I write. So, for anybody else, it's like a full notebook, right?
You take a break?
Yeah, I did. Is that me clapping? The what they said was, one thing I did want to say, when they talked about tax incentives, they said direct pay credits for eligible projects, e.g. solar, energy storage, geothermal, EV, and charging projects starting in 2025 are probably okay, but the new tax bill that is coming up, there's a strong pressure to limit the monetization. So you might have only get professional help because, it's not going to be easy stuff and that debt financing. Anything with public sale and bonds and private placements and private banks and government loans, it's probably not going to be allowable, right? And do your rate studies, but the IRA, the likelihood of it being extended, probably not. And that's when they said the IIJA probably won't be touchable because that's extendable to 2032, but the IRA might not be accessible to us. So we may want to look at, if we have that available, then that's fine. They did say, there was one more thing I wanted to tell you guys. You probably already know these, but the 14th is the last day for them to get this budget passed. Otherwise, we will go on a CR, the continuing resolution. The feeling is that there will likely be a continuing resolution for the rest of the year, the rest of the calendar year, not just the fiscal year, which ends September 30th, but they believe that we will likely be on a continuing resolution through December. If that happens, is not the same as the continuing resolution we're on now. It means you go back to 2022 numbers, which is the deal that President Biden made with Kevin McCarthy when he was in office, which means that everything is an 8% flat cut, including Department of Defense, which is not a good thing, because an 8% across the board cut takes everything back. And then they have to immediately start working on 2026 fiscal year budget. So I just wanted to say this so we can all start wondering about that. Again, there's a lot of talk about cybersecurity. And then there was a financing, infrastructure, and reconciliation panel. I'm gonna put all these notes. I started typing them all up that I can give to you guys. We had a nice photo with everybody. Senator Padilla did come in. I did get to talk to him. He did come speak to us later in. Ken Calvert came in. He's North State. He's Republican. Rep Valadeo. Who else I get to talk to? Jim Costa. He's from Southern Cal. And who else? Committee staff, Clayton Smith from the Natural Resources Committee, and Speaker Johnson's office, the T&I, Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. All of these were Thursday. On Friday, on the Bureau of Reclamation, the Principal Deputy Assistant Administrator, Bruno Pijot from the Environmental Protection Agency. Actually, seen someone there from the Office of Water, the Water Associate, Angela Coleman, U.S. Forest Service, and the Commissioner, Camille Totin, she's from the Bureau of Reclamation. And I'm missing somebody, I know I am, but the National Water Resources Association. And I didn't, lazy enough. And of course, I went to the strategic planning. And with that, we have a lot more to do. I think that during Water Week, when I return in April, things should calm down a little bit. I did see our Senator Schiff. As I was walking out, he was coming in, and he apologized for not being able to spend more time. I told him I'll be coming back in April. I think it'll be calming down. A lot of these new electeds are just getting their offices. So, a lot has happened in 6 weeks. A lot has happened in 6 weeks. And I will just say, the last thing I'll tell you guys is I did get to sit in on the Farm Bill discussion on Thursday and Friday, the Farm Bill hearing. If you get a chance, I would tell you to take a look at it. The Farm Bill, most people think it only has to do with the farmers, but it does not. There's a lot packed into the Farm Bill, including some things that affect all of us and the district. It affects, USAID. It affects, distribution of food and water and lots of things. So if you get a chance, please pay attention to those kind of discussions, because it affects us greatly in the work that we do and the work that our partners do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in a few weeks when things do start to get settled. Don't know that it'll be for the positive, but I can't afford not to be positive because, the alternative is not good. Mm-hmm. So, es todo for that. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot. And I want to thank the board and staff for going to Washington, D.C. and advocating on our behalf. And
sorry, I got one more thing. Please.
Sure.
I want to say thank you a lot to Ms. Robin and to Ms. Kate and Justin and the rest of the administrative staff. Thank you so much. Do you have one? Can I see it? Sure. And Andrew, they were wonderful. We had this one, these new ones, fantastic. And then where's the big one? And then we have another one, a trifold one. Oh, yeah. They were fantastic. The updated ones, well received, and as usual, our colleagues at other agencies were asked me for copies so they could take back to their districts. So these always come in handy. These are my favorite thing, to always have a leave back so that I can give them to people. The only thing I'm going to ask for, and I know I'm always asking for something, is I would love to have a folder. This folder, like this, one of these. So, I know CASA gives us one, but I want my own.
Noted.
Yeah, thank you. I like to have my own so that I don't, yeah, thank you. So it was great, and but I don't want to let the night go by without saying thank you to the entire staff for supporting us and for making sure, and for Justin and Andrew. We had great meetings that made me run around, but we had great meetings. I got my physical therapy in, so thank you. And I apologize for interrupting, but thank
no
you.
worries, no worries. Thank you. And once again, thank you, board members, for all your advocacy and all your hard work in DC. And that's what we do with some of these trips. We are out there advocating and networking and trying to make our district better. So moving on, Director Alvarado.
Yes, thank you. I think it's more important than ever that advocacy
Yes, sir.
continues, and that we do need to keep an open mind, because it's a new administration, and I believe persistence will definitely pay off.
Yeah.
And we need to be open to meeting with both sides. This is not this is America. There's two sides. So in order to get things done, that's going to happen. It's going to have to happen. Anyway, that's my 2 cents there.
Thank you.
And as far as myself, since our last board meeting, I attended, as you all know, the Strategic Planning Board Retreat, which was very nice, very good. I think we've got a lot of work accomplished. We still got a lot more to go, but we're getting there. I also attended February 27th, the WCW Black History Month at the plant. That was very nicely done as well, well attended by the staff, and President Rentila and I were there. I also attended the San Pablo Council meeting via Zoom, also the North Richmond MAC as well, and I have nothing more to add to that except it was eye-opening. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, I also was at the strategic board meeting, and I did visit the plant for their Black History Month celebration, and it was great. And being that I am on the RNCC and the neighborhood council guy, I was really pleased to see that one of the founders was from the North Richmond Neighborhood Council. So, yeah, thumbs up to him. And so I did go to the city council meeting yesterday, and there was a discussion about our unhoused people in Richmond, and there was a nonprofit there that was trying to provide housing, and then they talked about our undocumented brothers and sisters. The Richmond City Council committed over $1 million for legal aid to undocumented folks. And then coming up, the Fairmead Hilltop Neighborhood Council on the 27th, we're going to have Mayor Eduardo Martinez from Richmond at our meeting. And then Monday, the RNCC will have planning presenting. They'll do a special presentation on all the illegal tobacco shops in Richmond. And then in April, Finance Committee, and then after that, we'll have Congressman Gary Mendy's office, and I'm hoping after that, we are able to get West County Wastewater as a presenter. I think it's about time. And so I don't know if anybody has anything else they'd like to add. I see one hand down there. Let's start with Director Weiner.
I just wanted to add on to what Director Sutherland said. The Supreme Court ruled that agencies cannot make regulations. And the alternative is that Congress has to be specific about what an agency, what the agency's regulations are. In other words, in an effort to destroy all of our agencies, the Supreme Court said that they no longer have the power to create regulation, because Congress usually hands them the general idea, and then they come up with the specifics on how to do that. So that's a thing that everyone needs to keep in mind, that Congress is now has to be more specific about regulation, and they have to do the regulation. They can no longer assign it to an executive branch agency to do it. In addition, the president has taken to overriding Congress, and so I am wondering if we need to start lobbying the executive branch, since they are in charge of all money and how it gets distributed. Congress no longer has the sole power of the purse. The executive branch has claimed it for their own. And the only option to stop this is for Congress, just no matter what party they're in, to reclaim their authority. And so far, that doesn't seem to be their modus operandi. So I am pitching make the USA again, and asking Congress, no matter what party they're in, to stand up to the overreach of the executive branch and reclaim their constitutional powers. And if anybody would like to send a letter to their senator and congressman, I have a model that I handed out when I was in DC.
Thank you. Vice President Suddath, you had something you wanted to add in closing?
Yes. Two things, in case you didn't know. So, and I think we can talk about these at another meeting, but on Tuesday, and this directly affects us. So on Tuesday, this administration, in one of the reasons EPA couldn't speak to us about this, on Tuesday, administration killed the EPA's effluent limit guidelines, Plan 15. And that plan, in case you don't know it, and for the public's benefit, is that what that meant is that they withdrew the pending Biden administration plan that would have protected public health from the chemical manufacturing sector by setting discharge limits on the toxic forever chemicals known as PFAS, perfluoroalkyl substances. They pulled the proposal from the White House review, which was this administration did, which was the last step before the agency could release the plan publicly and seek public comment on it. The decision is a significant setback for efforts to address the growing public health crisis caused by industrial PFAS pollution of the water supply, coupled with the president's executive order, which places a freeze on any new federal regulations. The withdrawal prompts significant concerns from environmental and public health advocates about the future of PFAS regulations and whether tackling the PFAS contamination crisis will be an administrative policy. And that also puts into question if we're ever going to get the circular designation and whether wastewater treatment utilities will be holding the bag for PFAS contamination, because we were looking for us to be passed through. We are not the originators of PFAS. So that's going to be a constant battle. And then the last thing I had some good news that I wanted to share with you all. Yes, I'm smiling at you, Miss Angela. So I'm going to share it, Miss Angela. Okay, you good? Great, thank you. So there is a program that's called the Educate to Lead program. All of you know that I've been participating in Water Education for Latino Leaders, as well as CAWEF, which is the California African American Water Education Fund. And the two agencies have been working together to put together a program to educate new leaders. The program is designed with mentorship, and it's a framework to train our next generation of water leaders. It is set to launch with an inaugural cohort of 18 individuals who are chosen. They were nominated by their agencies throughout California. And I asked for nominations from this agency, along with, I chair CAWEF, as well as I'm a fellow with WELL. And I'm excited to introduce you to the two members from our agency who will be representing West County Wastewater in this inaugural class. One of them is with us tonight, Miss Angela Andrews, our Deputy General Manager. Our capital portfolio manager was nominated, as well as Miss Avani Allen, who's our financial analyst. The program will start shortly this spring, and they will. We're still working out the planning and logistics, but they'll have 4 sessions down in Southern California, as well as some Zoom sessions. And we have board members at several agencies throughout California who will be leading the discussions, as well as some really prominent professors and water experts, water and wastewater experts throughout California who will be serving as their mentors and instructors. So, yay.
Yay, congratulations.
So I thought we'd say that to the end, but yes, I'm looking forward to being able to be part of this program. So, es todo, sir.
Thank you, and you've heard a lot of information here tonight, and so if you've missed any, just come to our website, West County Wastewater website, and you'll find a recording there, and you can look at the information that you may have missed tonight. Before we close, I wanted to remind everybody, Sunday is daylight savings time. Just saying, already. And then happy Ash Wednesday for those that celebrate that. And once again, it is Women's History Month, so thank a woman in your life or give her a hug. And then Friday is Employee Appreciation Day. So just putting that out there. It is 8:40, March 5th. I want to thank everybody for coming.
Wait. Robin,
Tell us the next.
I'm sorry,
take away
Robin.
her thunder. Let Robin, we got announcements. You got any announcements, Robin?
I really,
She was shaking her head.
I will say that the IOE meeting normally scheduled for March
Right.
11th would have been scheduled. The regular meeting is canceled, and a special meeting will occur on March 13th at 11 a.m. Everything else is as scheduled on the agenda. Nothing further.
Thank you. That being said, it is 8:41. Thank you all.
She just said it. Thank you.
So let me call Melvin. So you said, what time so he'll know? Yes, so I know what time you go by his time. Okay.
I don't know. I'm glad one of us can be positive, because right now, all I am is pissed off.
Oh, we all are, but you can't have a stroke about it. You gotta let that